Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, to the 14th round of the 11th season of the Bandit Racing League, and most importantly for tonight's purposes, the first round of the Season 11 playoffs, where we here at the Bandit Racing League on Full Send Racing Network declare a champion for the 11th iteration of the Bandit Racing League. We have 12 drivers tonight who will be fighting for an opportunity to make their way into the round of 8 in just 4 races time, make that 11 drivers, as we have Benjamin Lacey unable to compete in tonight's race. But we are in for a great one tonight here, folks, at the Charlotte Roval for the Big Red Propane 40 laps here around the Roval infield layout of the Charlotte Motor Speedway. We thank Perfect Shine Auto Spa as well as Apex Sim Racing, as always, for their contributions to the series and as well to tonight's sponsor, Big Red Propane. Hi, folks. I am, as always, Marshall Crocker Jr. Joined alongside me is Chris Ferreira here for another awesome race here in the Bandit Racing League, courtesy of Full Send Racing Network. Watch up top is the current times in practice, so you know how drivers are running in our final road course event of the season. Chris, this is a big one. This is the one we've been excited for a really, really long time, because we want to get started. These are the races where every week we're going to be making progress towards declaring a new champion, seeing who can make that round of 8, and then who can make that championship 4 to go race for a title at Homestead, Miami. So tonight's a big one, and I don't know about you, Chris, but I feel like that the anticipation, the jitters of the playoffs, you can feel them. I think the drivers can feel them too.
Actually, the intensity's been ramping up for the past, several weeks now. Every week just seems to get more and more intense, and this is what we've been building up for all season. We've had some exciting finishes up until this point. There's been a lot of, we'll say Hail Marys towards the end of races where it's kind of a toss-up, guys getting passed on the last couple laps. There's also been a lot of drama. Nick Nickerson, coming into a road course race, we've seen him been, relatively dominant, pretty much a shoe-in to win. The last time we were at a road course wasn't the case. So I just think that kind of speaks to where we're at with the Bandit Racing League and the competition level. And these guys know it's go time. All the chips are on the table, and it's time to go.
Yes, sir. Well, here we go. We are in for an incredible night of racing tonight. And tonight we're going to try to make a point of giving you a little bit more context in your playoff drivers. So before we get started tonight, we do want to, of course, thank tonight's sponsor, Big Red Propane. Of course, one of the primary sponsors they have been all season for one of our top teams, GFR Racing. And they're a independent propane company out of Austin, Texas. And we want to give a particular shout out to Frank, the owner, big supporter of, again, both GFR Racing as well as tonight's race here at Charlotte Roval. So we thank Big Red Propane for sponsoring tonight's event. But first of all, Chris, we want to get into something not just for us, but something for you guys, the viewers. And first of all, we thank those of you, especially who show up for the pre-race and get things started here at the very start of the night. I know we're starting a little bit early tonight, but people, I'm sure, will start to trickle in over time. And again, be sure to get the link out there to anybody that you know who's interested, because tonight guys are fighting for a little bit extra, and this is personally one of my favorite tracks in the entire service. So definitely get the link out there, get the word out there, and tonight's race should be a good one. But here is the playoff bracket for Season 11 of the Bandit Racing League. And we will have a little something for you guys as well, because one of the fun parts about having a bracket like this is getting to make your own predictions, predicting which drivers will make the final 8 and in what order, who will score the most points in each round, and then who will make the final 4 to go race for the championship at Homestead, Miami, and declare ourselves the champion. So we want to announce the Bandit Racing League Bracket Challenge. We did this a few years ago. We did it in a previous season. It was a big hit. You guys enjoyed doing it, and we're going to do it again this season. So here's how this works. What you're going to do is you're going to send your picks to FSRNBRL at gmail.com. That's going to be our official Bandit Racing League email through Full Send Racing Network to enter your picks. And all you have to do is you just have to send us an email showing us that explains the order in each round of the playoffs. So either if you want to change the initial image, which has been posted on our social medias, on our Instagram and in our other social medias, as well as here on YouTube. And you can either take that and edit that image and fill it in yourself to fill in your own bracket, or just tell us what picks you would make each way, what you think the order will be at the start of the round of 8, and what drivers will still be in the championship, and then for the round of 4, and what drivers will be in what order, and then finally who you think will be the champion in 8 races time at Homestead, Miami. And after that, we're going to take your picks, we're going to put them on the broadcast. I will make them into a graphic similar to the ones we're about to show you for Chris and I, and that way you guys can not only enter into a competition to win some free stuff, a free prize package courtesy of Full Send Racing Network. That will come from the Bandit Racing League GeezerAuthentics.com store, so you can win some free merchandise shipped to you. And all you got to do is give us your picks for who you think will win. The closest, that's a combination of the most drivers in the round of 4 and the round of 8. The driver or the fan or potentially driver, if somebody would like to enter, who comes closest will win a prize package courtesy of us here at Full Send Racing Network. So go send your picks to the link below. That email is also linked in the description, so you know where to go. But Chris, we want to show the fans at home our brackets, and we're going to show you Chris is here first, just to give you a little bit of context. So Chris, let's just look at your rounds. You got Nickerson, Guzik, Lacey, Hamilton, Hart, Welch, Haggy, and Foster. Your round of 8 group there, looking at some notable omissions. Curtis Yancey not making the round of 8 for you. That's got to be a big pick that I know for a lot of people they see going far. And then you got Nickerson, Guzik, Lacey, and Welch. I believe the season 9 exact final 4, and a bit of a repeat there, where you have potentially the ultimate jinx. You got fan favorite Cody Welch winning the title there. Talk us through your mindset here. Do you still stand by these picks?
I still stand by them. It was definitely super tough getting to that selection because, I mean, like I said, this is the cream of the crop here at the the top level, in my opinion, of iRacing here. So yeah, it was definitely tough making my choices. To me, the final 4, it was a little bit of a rolling of the dice. I think any of those guys win. I think anybody in the current playoff grid can win. So yeah, made some tough decisions on who can make it, just looking at the kind of the schedule and driver performance, but we'll see what we can get. But yeah, I do like Cody. He's been a kind of a hot stretch here, and he's been super consistent, so we'll see if we can put it all together.
Yes, sir. Well, we'll cover mine here in just a moment, but first we have a little segment here where we're going to give you some track info, courtesy of the man who should know his way here, not just around a road course, but around our layout here at the Roval. We got Nick Nickerson. He's going to do an in-car ride around here for us. Nick, it's Marshall and Chris up at the broadcast booth. Got a copy?
How's it going, man?
Howdy, Nick. Always good to talk to you here. Good to talk to you pre-race here for a change. And, well, it sounds like you're going to give us a lap here around the track at the Charlotte Roval for the fans at home. I know I love this circuit, so as you get set off here, we'll put you in the cockpit view. And just not only are you going to talk us through it, but how are you feeling about tonight's race? This is a track that suits your style.
Oh, man. I mean, I really do like this track, but the setup that we're running on this, because, this car is a couple years old, is just awful. So it's going to be very difficult for a lot of us. I'm just having a hard time not hitting the wall in certain areas, but it's still a fun track. I mean, I'm going to take this kind of slow. Just like, I don't know if I can talk and run a fast lap at the same time.
We
so
will
like
find
turn
out.
1, it's pretty brutal, but you got to stay off them curbs and just try to get a straight line up this little hill here, and really pedaling it through this left-hander. And turns 2 and 3 here. You don't want to go all the way out to the wall, but you'll kind of go up here towards the red. And again, just try to get a nice straight line out of here, because if you have any wheel going over those bumps, the back end will just kick out on you. And so we got this little kind of uphill right-hander, and it's just really hard to get it slowed down. You don't want to go skating off there because there's a bunch of grass over there, and you can't really see the corner. And this guy, you really got to watch out for that wall. But here's the most important corner in this whole track, I believe, because you need to get as fast of an exit as possible, because this is probably the fastest section. Maybe, like, after this chicane might be the faster, I don't know, but it's pretty close. But coming up to the good old bus stop, this thing's a little tricky. I'm going to be using all the curb I can on this first lefter, and then try to keep it off the curbs coming out, so I can get a good run onto NASCAR in 3 and 4. It's going to be an extra paramount. You can make up a lot of time or lose a lot of time. And probably the most trickiest part of this whole track is this last chicane. It's really bumpy in the braking zone. Right about here, you can probably see the car jostle around. But again, I'll probably use curbs in the first, and then just try to keep them off the curbs on the second and get a nice, good run all the way to start-finish line.
Amazing. Thank you, Nick. It's great to have that context. And if anybody else in this series wants to go back and get a bit of a track guide for next year we run this, obviously not the same setup, but I feel like that's a pretty good documentation to go off, because, Nick, you know your stuff, you know what you're doing, and that's why you're the guy to watch tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one, but should be exciting. We'll see, at least for a couple of us.
Well, we wish you the best of luck tonight, Nick, getting your playoffs started on a good note.
Hey, man, take care.
You too. There we are. Always good to get a chance to check in with our resident road course guy, and who better to go over tonight's race with. But here we go, just before we get into qualifying, where we're actually not going to keep up with qualifying too much because it's a long session. We'll put your standings on the side here in just a moment as we go through the session. But first, we want to also look at my bracket. I want to go over it, let you guys know my official picks. It already sounds like somebody in the chat really resonating with your picks there, Chris. So I agree. I think Welch is a pretty good shout as somebody who can go far, though. We'll talk about in a moment. You had an interesting caveat to that. But my order, I got Nickerson, Hamilton, the top two in the first round. I think GFR is going to be really good. I think the tracks suit them well in round one. Cody Welch as well. He's been heating up lately. He and his teammate, I think, will do well. But again, important to note, Benjamin Lacey will not be running tonight. I believe he will get provisional points, which should be enough to at least keep him in contention, but will put him behind the 8 ball right off the bat due to a personal commitment. Then we got Brett Guzik, Connor Gibson. I got the 12th seed in the playoffs based on his number of top fives, but definitely a guy that top five in regular season points. I think is just going to consistently make his way through the rounds, and I think could be potentially fight for the final 4. And then Ricky Hart Jr. and Curtis Yancey, I think will be towards the bottom. I think they may have a few races where perhaps they get involved in something. Maybe they struggle, but I think overall will do quite well. Then finally, Nickerson, Lacey, Welch, and Guzik, again, the big 4. I think that was the season 10 finale from last year. And I got Benjamin Lacey going all the way. He's got the most momentum here at the end of the regular season. I think that's promising. I think that speaks well to the season that he's going to have here in the playoffs. I have high hopes for him. So those are my picks. But Chris, I'll throw it to you there because you had mentioned for your selection of Cody Welch there for the title, you actually said you thought he was going to do it without any victories. And do you stand by that? What do you think the chances are that comes true?
That's a little bit more of a bolder prediction, but I like that as like kind of like a little prop bet there. Yeah, no, I think he can do it. He could pull off what Ryan Newman couldn't a couple years ago, back in the Cup Series. But I mean, he's been super consistent. He's gotten here without a win. There's been a couple times where he could have probably just ran second, but he went and tried to go for broke and went for a win. So I mean, he can win this thing and just finish in second all the way through. But all he has to do is finish first in that or finish first amongst the 4 in that last race, and he'll have it in the bag. So. Doesn't necessarily have to win the thing, and hopefully he snaps that win streak, but I think he can do it with that one.
I think you're right. I think there's a pretty darn good chance. Here we go. We're going to go into our little recap, a bit of a profile for each and every driver here. We're just going to give you a little bit of info about them, tell you what seed they are, and then we will move on. We're going to talk about Connor Gibson in a moment. He is the 12th seed, but unfortunately, we didn't have enough content to generate a full graphic for him. So we're going to move on to 11th, and we'll talk a bit about Connor here in a moment. But Chris, we'll start off here. Eddie Haggy, the 11th seed. He snuck in under the wire here in the last couple races, but a really, really good finish. Remember last week at Auto Club, no wins on the year, 1 top 5, but 8 top 10s. That's a good number. He's been consistent, but definitely flying under the radar, wouldn't you say?
I'd say so. I mean, last week he was in contention to win. As long as he kind of keeps that, that kind of pace up there and keeps that car clean and in the top 10, I think he'll make it clear through to the round of 8.
Next, we got one of the younger drivers in the series, a former most improved here in the number 76 car, Mark Allen Bivens, one of the youngest, but one of the most talented, and he's always found a way to break through for really, really good finishes in this series. He has 2 top 5s this year, better than most of the drivers towards the bottom end of the playoff grid. 5 top 10s, he's the 10 seed. Do you think that young potential, how he just seems to get better and better, may give him a shot at the round of 8 this year?
Off strategy, and that's putting him up front, then it bites him in the end. So he's got to find a way to have the speed, but also be on the same strategy as our lead pack.
Speaking of that strategy the lead pack has, well, Kevin Foster, a driver for one of the biggest teams here in the series, GFR Racing, you got to think that a guy that is going to have good info is going to be in cahoots with good drivers, but also a former 2-time champion, 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s. Not a ton of top 10s, actually, but a lot of good finishes lately. Do you think the combination of momentum and a good team is what he needs to succeed?
Yeah, other than Benjamin Lacey right now, I don't think there's anybody in the Bandit Racing League with more momentum than Kevin Foster. Back-to-back runner-up finishes. He's going to have to keep capitalizing on that and keep that car up front. He's got some rough tracks up, including this one. He's got some good speed tonight. Let's see if we can put it all together.
Now on to another young driver, Jackson Knock in the 00 car. 4 top 5s, 4 top 10s. If he gets in the top 10, it means he's in the top 5. Really good performances at the top end, but he's a guy that seems to get involved in stuff in the middle of some races. Not typically his fault, but staying out of trouble for a young driver I think is going to be the key for him. Would you agree?
I would say so. I mean, I look at this driver and I say Talladega. He's always up front, and I think that's going to be his opportunity.
Yeah, great shout there. Talladega going to be one of the wild cards here of the playoffs. And speaking of wild cards, the fan favorite, here he is, Cody Welch. Another guy that when he gets in the top 10, he's usually in the top 5. 5 top 5s, 6 top 10s. Actually, surprisingly low number. Less than half the races in the regular season, he was in the top 10. And if you want to talk about a guy that is either a win, a second, a top 3 or a bust. It's Cody Welch, and I think that speaks to his chase for first place. Do you think maybe he's got to put the search for that win behind him, like you were kind of alluding to?
Yeah, I think he's just got to be consistent. But one track that I see coming up for him that I think he's going to be really solid at is Darlington. So watch out for that 85 car next week.
We are going to go over the rest here in just a few moments. But first, folks, we got to get into tonight's starting grid here, courtesy of Perfect Shine Auto Spa, because tonight's qualifier is over a little bit early, which is nice because typically for the road courses they tend to drag on here a little bit. But we will do the rest of your full pre-race rundown here in just a little bit of time. But here we go, folks. Your starting grid here, courtesy of Perfect Shine Auto Spa, and let's get that up for you. On the front row, you can probably guess one of those names. There he is, the man himself, Mr. Nick Nickerson, your pole sitter here in the number 2 car. He starts alongside his teammate, Mr. Christopher Hamilton, on the front row. Sean Britt for Britt Racing in the number 98 car, along with Curtis Yancey for Ignite RC. That is row number 2, a playoff contender. Then remember, the P there is an indicator that a driver is a playoff driver, just to clarify in advance here. So 2 GFR teammates on the front row, then Britt and Yancey on row number 2. Cody Welch starts alongside Ricky Hart Jr. with Kevin Foster and Mark Allen Bivens making up row number 4. After that, we got Connor Gibson, the Mr. Consistent of this year. The Canadian starts alongside Brett Guzik, defending winner here at the road courses, starting all the way back in 10th position. David Lakey and Jackson Knock will take the 11th and 12th spots. Remember, Knock, a playoff driver here tonight. Then moving down a little ways, we go to Dawson Guzik, another of the Guziks there, starting in 13th with Paul Wilson on his outside on row number 7. Matt Crockett starts on the inside of Benny Hogan there in the 11 car with Eddie Hagee and Terry Condis on row number 9, Hagee being the last qualifying playoff driver. Then to round off the 20 car field for tonight, we have Bill Harkins starting alongside Hayden Paul, who rounds off the grid tonight in 20th position. Finally, to go through our playoff profiles here for just one more moment, Curtis Yancey here, 1 win on the season, 4 top 5s, 9 top 10s. He's been consistent this year, but we saw some issues there last race. Things started to get a little bit heated up for him. I think maintaining his cool and being as consistent as possible and just focusing on the big picture, I think is going to be the key for him.
Absolutely, yeah. Bottle up that aggression a little bit, and I think he'll be clear through.
Going on after that, we got Ricky Hart Jr., and again, a former champion in this series, the first of our former champions other than Foster. 1 win, 4 top 5s, 8 top 10s. He's been pretty solid all year round, but maybe has lacked that killer instinct to go for wins in these last few weeks. Seems like he's kind of mellowed out a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say so. He had a little hot streak in the middle of the season. Let's see if he can kind of relight that fire here in the playoffs.
A driver who's already had that plenty of fire, 5 top 5s, 10 top 10s, very fittingly for Chris Hamilton, but still looking for that first win for GFR. He's on the front row tonight. Chris, do you think he's close to breaking through for that win, or should a title be more realistic for him?
I think that he's pretty close to that win. I guess we'll discuss that a little bit later, but yeah, he's getting closer and closer every week.
Finally, 2 more to go. Brett Guzik, your number 2 seed here. 3 wins, 4 top 5s, 6 top 10s. Consistency has not been the name of the game for Brett Guzik this season. That top-end pace has been his strategy. Weird to see the consistency drop out, and does that almost scare you a little bit for him, Chris, or do you think the newfound temptation for wins is going to be getting him a second title?
I think the playoffs will kind of refocus him and get him kind of back into staying on the preferred strategy here. So hoping for a little bit more consistency out of that 0-4 car heading into the playoffs.
And finally, as we wait to go green here, Nick Nickerson, the 1 seed, regular season champion for the 3rd time in Bandit history. 3 wins, 9 top 5s, 12 top 10s. We're cutting to him live here right now as your poll sitter before we go green tonight. And Chris, is there any doubt he's the favorite, or do one of these other drivers we've seen the last few weeks having good momentum make you wonder if maybe he's got some more challengers this year than he's ever had?
I'd say that he's not the runaway favorite like years past, but he's definitely the favorite heading into the playoffs, and certainly starting at the Roval, he's putting himself in a good position tonight.
Well, folks, we are ready here. We'll talk a little bit in a few laps' time about the schedule, but right now, we open the playoffs. No cautions here typically at the road course. We got 40 laps straight of racing action. The front row, the 2 teammates, the 2 and the 15, Nickerson and Hamilton. Does somebody make the big jump on lap number 1? Hamilton gets a better run before the first turn, but green flag for the big red Propane 40 at Charlotte Roval. And into turn number 1, it is the regular season champion taking us to green. Whoa, Curtis Yancey, turn number 1, slides off wide and makes contact with the outside wall. Big damage to the front right on the 51.
That is not how you want to start your playoffs out. We were just talking about him. Maybe tame that aggression a little bit. that aggression may have gotten the best of him here. We'll have to see how he rebounds from that.
That will promote a few drivers up, including Cody Welch, who moves up to 4th ahead of Ricky Hart Jr. in 5th. A few more drivers scooching around here as Curtis Yancey continues to slip. Paul Wilson in the 86 car going to look to the outside of him. Early on right now, Nick with about a half-second advantage to his teammate. Looking elsewhere, I mean, everybody battling throughout the field as there goes Paul Wilson. Yancey trying to turn, just impossible. Looks like that car's turning like a boat with the damage, and he hits the wall. Strong contact. Curtis Yancey's start not going the way he was hoping for. About the worst first lap you could possibly imagine for a driver. You go on board here and just you watch the other cars flying away. This is not what you wanted to see if you're a Curtis Yancey fan. But Nick Nickerson right now, about the most smooth sailing first lap in contrast to Yancey.
Yeah, pretty orderly up front right now. They're kind of just one by one here, kind of getting in their rhythm. But yeah, for that 51 car right now, I think the name of the game is just try to baby it, see what it's got. Hopefully you can kind of ride around here and wait till you get your pit cycle and get those repairs done. But yeah, just hopefully you can just kind of settle in here and just get that thing around the track here for a number of laps.
Currently 8 drivers in the top 10, currently all playoff contenders. The only 2 that aren't are Sean Britt and David Lakey. Sean Britt off to a good start here on the first lap, making pretty good time. About to have a battle here for position between 2 playoff drivers, between Mark-Allen Bivens, who's up 2 spots, and Brett Guzik, I should say, who's up 3 spots. Remember, Brett Guzik started at the back end of the top 10. Now he is on the attack to potentially take over P6 from Mark-Allen Bivens. And to the inside he goes. Bivens wide through that inside right-hander. We talked about that pre-race, Chris. He said that was going to be a key corner, and he almost blew it there, did Bivens. And now a crossover for Guzik. We're side by side through the tri-oval.
Oh, that's what makes this track so great, because you have so many different approaches and to the corners, and there's so many hard braking zones that you can just, oh, you got me there, I'm going to fight you back here, and just kind of flip-flop back and forth. It looks like the 0-4 star full control. See if you can do anything else here in the early stage of the race.
Through that famous bus stop on the backstretch, it looked like it was going to be close there off the exit. Mark-Allen Bivens could just send it really hard on the brakes here. He's going to have the better momentum as he sits right on the back bumper of Brett Guzik. Further up front, battle for second developing between Britt, Hamilton, and Welch. But safe there through the corner goes Brett Guzik, so he will maintain that 6th position. Fastest lap of the race here early on. Nick Nickerson, your race leader, just around a 121.13. That will be the benchmark. As we see Christopher Hamilton coming up to fellow playoff driver Curtis Yancey, who now exits the pits 1 lap down.
Yeah, it's a tough break for him early, and like you had mentioned at the top of the broadcast, you don't see many cautions here at the road courses, so hopefully he can rebound. Maybe some other guys get into some trouble, but just kind of stick through it now, and hopefully it all works out in his favor, but not the ideal start to his playoff run.
One thing that is important to mention once again is that the playoff, the order is set at the same amount for everybody. Everybody is at an even 1,000 points to start the playoffs, and that resets every round, and that's what I think is so exciting right now. It's an opportunity for those drivers like Christopher Hamilton that have been maybe a little bit further back here in the points than maybe behind a guy like Curtis Yancey, and as Curtis Yancey passes him on fresh tires, well, now Hamilton sees that gap suddenly so much wider than it would have been if he'd been beating Curtis just 1 week ago in the points. So this is amazing to see. And Cody Welch here, right behind, just got the pass done on Sean Britt. The 85 car continuing to work his way up. And I mean, Cody Welch, Chris, not a guy we typically talk about a ton here at the road courses, but always solid, always good for about a top 5 finish. But they're passing Sean Britt, who is runner-up at Road America. I think he's got some real pace tonight.
Yeah, he looks real strong. He looks strong in practice. I was thinking about, I guess we'll get into race picks here soon, but I was thinking about making him my race pick. Unfortunately, I didn't tonight. But he's always a guy that's really strong on the road courses, and as long as he keeps the four tires on the track, that's kind of the name of the game tonight. Get a good finish and move on to Darlington and the rest of our regular schedule. I think that's what these guys are looking for. Other than Nick Nickerson, he's loving every second of this.
Going to show the battle here between David Lakey with Jackson Knock right behind him, trying to get in the top 10. One of the playoff drivers against the guy who just missed it last week in David Lakey. But you alluded to it there, Chris. Let's put up our race picks for tonight's race. And who do you got? Who's your pick besides Nick Nickerson? Because we did set that caveat, the race favorite. We weren't going to pick him. So who else were you fancying tonight?
Well, I saw his lap times in practice. He looks solid, and I know he's a solid road racer here. So go with the guy currently in P2, Christopher Hamilton. I know I jinxed him last week. Hopefully we don't jinx him this week.
Yeah, I think a great shout. He's been so consistent this year at the road courses. I remember racing him back in my one-off appearance at Watkins Glen last season. Just so solid with his tires. He conserves well, but also makes consistent pace. Guys like a robot driving these road courses, very similar to Nick Nickerson, but almost a little bit less unhinged in some ways than the way Nick drives really on the ragged edge. So I'm going Sean Britt tonight. He was runner-up at Road America. I have a really good feeling about him at the road courses, and I think starting off in his first race after just missing the playoffs, that I know was pretty heartbreaking for a guy that likely should have been there if he hadn't missed a couple races. I just think Sean Britt's got that fire under him tonight. I think he's got a good shout, and I think he has the urge to win tonight, which I think is always key, especially with these races of attrition. But right now, Ricky Hart Jr. and Brett Guzik, two playoff drivers battling for a top 5 here tonight. And again, I pointed it out earlier, but Ricky Hart Jr. and Brett Guzik, not a ton of top 5s apiece here this season. They've had trouble with consistency, especially towards the end of the season. I think, Chris, you got to have the playoffs in the back of your mind for one of these guys. And at what point is one position to get in the top 5? How much of a difference does it make in a 4-race round for the round of 12?
I'd say here early, I'm probably not going to fight too much. I'm going to lay over and let you go. If I see you have more pace later on in the race, maybe I'll fight for it a little bit harder. But here at the Roval, I'm just trying to get a good finish. For me personally, I think pretty much for anybody other than Nick Nickerson is going to just try and get a really solid finish tonight and not try to put anything in jeopardy, because this could make or break your round. You know, we were talking about it earlier as Benjamin Lacey not making it tonight, and I think that's a huge detriment to him. You know, you have a really solid class of drivers here in this playoffs this season, and you know, while he'll definitely be strong in the upcoming tracks that we have on the schedule in this round, that you're already putting yourself in the hole. So just getting out of here tonight with a good amount of points and making it on to the next one is the name of the game for me tonight.
I got an interesting stat for you here, Chris. Last 3 laps, you'd probably guess, well, more than likely it's the man himself, the former champion, Nick Nickerson, probably fastest lap of the race. Christopher Hamilton said the faster lap each of the last 3, caught up 0.2 that time, caught up 0.5 the lap before. The 15 car is holding his teammate honest here and is really starting to break away from Cody Welch in third, with Curtis Yancey on fresh tires a lap down, falling in behind him.
Well, it's the reason I picked him. Like I said, I mean, you alluded to it too, as well as at Watkins Glen, he's been super quick. And we saw it at Sonoma. He was battling Brett there for a while, you know, in the early stages of the race. They got off strategy and kind of separated there, but those were the 2 guys that were giving the 2 car the most competition all night. So I think that he'll have good pace. We'll see if he can make it to the 2 at Nick Nickerson, but those are teammates, and they both aren't going to race each other super hard. I don't think in this opening race of the first round. So we'll see what he's got, but I do like his chances here early.
This knock Lakey battle heating back up here with the 00 still right on the back end of the 84 car. And I mean, Chris, you've run this track. I think in the only other time we've run it in Bandit Racing League Series history, which was Season 8, a race that was predictably won by Nick Nickerson. But in your experience, and maybe considering what you know about this package, as we see the 00 car to the outside all the way around, he's going to try on Lakey. Can they go side by side? No, Lakey's going to take the advantages, then 00 backs out. But in your experience, what's this track like to pass on in one of these stock cars?
I mean, it's like trying to stop a freight train, to be honest with you. It is super fun. I know we were talking about it a little bit before the broadcast, but it's super fun driving these cars on here because, I mean, they feel like they shouldn't be on the track, which kind of makes it exciting. You know, you're constantly fighting the car from not doing what it's not supposed to, and there's just so many opportunities to push, which, you know, opens up, you know, passing opportunities, but the braking zones. There's a lot of heavy braking zones here, and there's a lot of areas where you can make a mistake. And I think just riding behind a guy, just kind of lurking in the background, can make people make mistakes. But I do like that move out of 00. That's a little bit more of a mature move, backing out on that last chicane there before you come to the line. I like that out of him, keeping it nice and clean early, and just trying to make his way through here. So kudos to him for making that nice clean pass.
Well, and it paid off because he then got the move done in the next corner there into turn number 1. As Matt Crocker here, we look back a little bit. 10 car here currently in 16th position, having a little bit of trouble there off the exit of the sweeping left-hander in the exit of the infield, and he's now going to battle with Bill Harkins here for 16th position. The 12 car of Harkins just ran his fastest lap the last time by, and yeah, I think it's just going to be a question of pace versus patience. I think those are going to be the 2 things that every driver is going to utilize. And I think guys like we saw in the pre-race, Curtis Yancey flying there in practice, but it was that first turn maybe got a little bit too aggressive on the brakes, and that patience there can make all your pace meaningless. But patience doesn't mean much for going for wins and making it through to playoff rounds if you don't also have pace. So it's a hand-in-hand maneuver here. And remember, Chris, as we see Dawson Guzik down the inside of the 84 car, currently a battle for the 11th position. Two non-playoff drivers, but guys who are still fighting fairly hard for position. But you got to remember here, Chris, as well, you don't need to be first after 4 races to go into round 2. You just got to be in the top 4 and or the top 8, I should say. You just got to beat 4 other drivers. So I think right now, if you're a guy like a Connor Gibson, once again, who off of consistency is currently the 7th best out of all the playoff drivers, well, that's putting you in the next round as of 1 race. So those guys who are typically pretty patient, I think this round is going to benefit that. I think it's not until you got to make it into the top 4 against some of the best in the next round that you'll really have to start pushing yourself as a driver.
Yeah, when I look at this round, I mean, starting off with the Roval, these last 3 races have been so awesome. And I know traditionally road courses for us have been kind of a snooze fest with one guy running away with the show. Like we're seeing a little bit tonight, but nonetheless, for the rest of the field, it's a real mix-up. Guys have trouble getting on and off pit road. They get off track. Whatever the case may be, it's a real shake-up, and I really like that. Then you go to 2 tracks with Darlington and Chicagoland, which are super abrasive tire eaters, and that's going to make for some exciting racing. And then obviously we ended off with Talladega, which is going to be nuts. So this round is, while it's super fun to watch, it's going to be very stressful for these drivers. So I just think being consistent, like those drivers that we were alluding to at the top of the broadcast, consistency is going to be key in this round.
I just want to answer a question about the points we just got there in the YouTube chat. For example, if Curtis Yancey does indeed finish 20th in tonight's race, would he then finish only 1 point behind Eddie Hagge, who's the next playoff driver, or would he earn points relative to all the other drivers? And the answer is the second option. He will finish with the amount of points he would get in a regular season race. So Nick would take 50 points for the race win, plus his bonus points, and the same will go for the other drivers. And that meaning that non-playoff drivers, they do factor into the overall order. If you have a certain number of playoff drivers between you and the next guy, you will then be that many points behind the next driver. So yeah, everybody counts, and it's the only thing that changes relative to the usual points battle is just the points reset at the end of every couple rounds. But then after that, it's the regular scoring. So it's just as important to race a driver that's not in the playoffs as usual as far as the overall points, I think is the best way to phrase that. So that is an interesting element here. And that's what I like about our format here, Chris, is that yeah, this does matter. How drivers race each other is relevant to the overall order of things, and whether that's playoff drivers or non-playoff drivers. And I think the fact that every battle is for position is going to mean more, not just to the playoff drivers for having more guys to get past, but also to guys like Sean Britt in the 98 car, who is still as important to pass. And I know as a guy who probably wishes he was in the playoffs, I think he's glad that he can race meaningfully per position with these guys.
Yeah, no, I think that means a lot to him, especially since I would say he kind of got snubbed a little bit there. I think he would have definitely been in the playoffs, like we said last week, had he made those 2 races that he unfortunately missed. So I think that he's going to come out here and he has a point to prove. He's going to try and contend and compete for races just like he was prior to the regular season ending. So that's a guy that I think has a lot of fire underneath him right now, and he's going to be aggressive, which could affect some of these playoff guys. If he's going to go contend for a win regardless of whether or not you're in the playoffs, and I like that. I like that there's going to be guys up here that aren't just playoff drivers contending for wins.
Right now we see the onboard Skype from Ricky Hart Jr.'s perspective. He currently sits in the 7th position with Mark Allen Bivens up ahead and Connor Gibson right behind, so 2 young playoff drivers both fighting for a good performance tonight. And if you want to think about it as in the top 8 cutoff for next round, and okay, well, who's in the top 8 right now, this is the battle for the 5, 6, and 7 spot with Kevin Foster currently sitting 8th out of the playoff contenders. So I think this is a very, very meaningful race for those who are going to be kind of on this weird bubble, because the cutoff, I think, is going to have a select group of drivers. I think Chris and I, we both had in our brackets the Nickersons, the Hamiltons, the Welches, those really consistent guys who all season have racked up good points. And I would have said Benjamin Lacey had he been able to make it to tonight's race. And, of course, he'll be behind the 8 ball tonight, essentially scoring last place points for tonight's race. I think that's going to be a big factor, is this group of drivers that you got to think probably expects the bigger question to be making the round of 8 rather than being a front runner in it. Because finishing first versus finishing 8th in each round doesn't matter when you go into the next round, but still, if you're a guy towards the back, you probably know what group of drivers you're racing against. And I think for the Gibsons and Bivens and Harts here, who currently find themselves towards the back end of the top 8 in the playoffs, I think they are hyper aware that the guys they're battling around are probably going to be the guys they need to beat the rest of the round.
Yeah, just speaking from my experience here in the playoffs with the Bandit Racing League, I think it was back in season 8 or 9, I forgot which one. I ended up making the round of 8 there. And it really just came down to, I would, get in every week and say, how can I get the best finish I can at this particular track? Some of them I wasn't super strong at. Being the Roval, I'm not the best road racer, but I find it super enjoyable. But it was just about, let's just make it through tonight, even if it's a top 15. Let me see who I can stay in front of and just see how close I can get to the guy in front of me. And then focus on it next week and just take it one race at a time. Some guys have a bigger picture where they're like, oh, I'm going to go out here and this is the race I'm going to focus on. The rest of them I don't really care about, whatever the case may be. Everybody has a different approach. But yeah, like you were saying, it's going to come down to little micro battles between these guys. And this is where it all starts. It's here tonight. It's going to set the foundation for the rest of this round. And at the end of the day, as long as you make it into the top 8, you're good to go. Next round it resets, and then you're resetting another battle there.
Well, don't look now here, Chris, but guess who's starting to heat up and is making good lap times and has broken the gap, or had broken the gap for second down to 0.7 of a second, and then made a mistake there to open it back up to 2 seconds. But that is Cody Welch, of course, the fan favorite here, driver of the number 85 car, currently sitting in a comfortable podium spot. I think would almost be, his 4th podium in like 6 races. He's been on fire lately, and that hot momentum even before that mistake, I think has been felt throughout the series. And I think the 785 cars of himself and Benjamin Lacey, who have been, again, on fire as of late, and the GFR cars, I think those two stables are, in my personal opinion, I think going to be the biggest team battle of the playoffs. And Cody Welch here tonight without a teammate, representing well here, currently sitting in 3rd.
Yeah, I completely agree with you that those two teams have all the momentum. If you look at GFR, you got Nick, obviously, tied for most wins on the season with Brett. But, he won back-to-back races there right before getting into the playoffs. And Kevin Foster, he's been on the podium, 2nd on the podium, 2 weeks in a row. So that team's super hot. And then you have, obviously, Benjamin Lacey winning last week and Cody Welch. They've been running 1-2 pretty much everywhere we went. Wasn't quite Cody Welch's night last week, but they were running together all night long. So those two teams are pretty much as hot as you can be. I'm really looking forward to that battle. You got 4 cars right now versus 2, and how that's all working out. And it's just going to be so exciting coming down to the wire, because I think that it's going to be probably those two teams fighting for the championship at the end of it.
Really awesome 3-headed battle here that's been going on for a bunch of laps now. Bivens, Hart, and Gibson here for 6th, 7th, and 8th. And I think it's a really great run so far from all 3 of these guys. Again, Connor Gibson doing what he has to do. Just, again, being consistent, staying dialed in, whereas Hart has been a little bit more aggressive, but it looks like Bivens just always has enough here to hold him off and enough pace in those high braking zones that he can keep that gap to a point where in the actual important passing spots, Hart just isn't close enough. And I do want to highlight one more time Connor Gibson here, because that stat about how Connor Gibson has 8 top 10s in the season, no top 5s, and that's why he's the 12th seed. By our playoff scoring system, it goes wins, then most top 5s, then most top 10s, and to have no top 5s in the season with the year he's had. Chris, that shocked me when I found out. I don't know if it's the same for you.
Yeah, no, he's just been incredibly consistent everywhere we go. And I think at the beginning of the season, he was sitting, 3rd in points for a while. We were wondering if he was going to be in contention for the regular season points. And, obviously he didn't get the wins that he wanted. But he's been right there all season long. He's just shy of, getting those top 5s and those wins. So I think it's coming for him. Just right now, I would just say, forget the wins tonight. Let me get through tonight. Let me be consistent. Let me get my top 10 like I've been doing all season long. And he's in position for that right now. So let's see if he can build upon that. I'm looking at Chicago win for him, because I feel like that's a track that will probably suit well to get that first.
Yeah, actually, as we watch this battle here, I am going to put up the overall schedule for the playoffs here. I don't think we've showed it yet, because it's important to give context to what tracks we're going to see in this round. And one of my favorites coming up next week in Darlington, it's got 1,000 names, but the track Too Tough to Tame. One of my favorite. It is a stupidly difficult oval. It's very technical, and it's one that I think either suits drivers really well or it's one of their absolute least favorite. But here is the season 11 schedule here for the Bandit Racing League. We have the Roval this week. We have Darlington coming up next Wednesday. Then the Wednesday after that, we go to Chicagoland, as you just mentioned here, Chris. That one, kind of a wild card. And then Talladega, the even bigger wild card. Anything can happen at Talladega. Such a fun track to close off the playoff round, to figure out what 8 drivers are going on to Michigan, Bristol, and Richmond. A fun selection of 3 very different racetracks to round off round number 2, and that will declare the 4 drivers who will race for the title in a one-lap showdown at Homestead, Miami on August the 9th. And yeah, really, really fun round here. But Darlington, Chicagoland, and Talladega, 2 really tough tracks, and then a really wild track. I can't wait to see what effect that plays on our playoff drivers. As we see here, Cody Welch has jumped up to 2nd with Christopher Hamilton moving back here, and we're gonna have to see when that happened, because it happened here a moment ago. First butt kicker racing replay of the race here, courtesy of butt kicker, but just sent it down the inside here, Chris. He was coming onto the coming off the first banking here in turns number 1 and 2, NASCAR turn 2, through the bus stop, just way braver on the brakes, and he got him. The 85 car showing real speed right now.
Yeah, he's looking really, really strong, and that was kind of just a power move, like you said. He just out-muscled him there, and I like that out of him. I like the aggression here starting the playoffs. You know, we were getting on him towards the end of the season, saying, where's that aggression out of that 85 car? I want to see him, you know, kind of move guys out of the way and then put himself there to try and get up to these wins. We'll see if he can cut into this lead of the 2 car, maybe make some noise, but he's hitting on something tonight, and see if we can put it all together.
I mean, I've said all season here, Chris, you know what the 85 car needs more of? More second places. I don't think Cody finishes second enough, but I definitely think for the purposes of the overall playoff situation, I think that being in the comfortable upper echelon of point scores, I think is the best thing you could possibly imagine for him. So I'm happy with this race, and I mean, Chris, for your pick, you're talking about guy that you think is going to win the title off of potentially no wins. This is the way that the start to that playoff would go. This is the best case scenario for your prediction.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's starting off super strong. We'll see, like I said, if he can get into the same zip code as the 2 car here tonight. But I mean, obviously a win would be the best case scenario, but this is just what he's done for pretty much the entire season. He's just been up front, nice and smooth. He hasn't had much trouble. I mean, there was connectivity issues at the beginning of the season, which kind of, you know, put him behind a little bit, but he's been right there all season. And when he does get into trouble, he's trying to go for a win. And I know he wants it so bad, and I think it's coming, but all he has to do is just keep doing what he's doing right now, as we're seeing the 04 car starting to apply pressure on the 15.
We are. The 04 car has come alive here. Got Sean Britt a few laps back, and now is really taking on the charge to Christopher Hamilton. He is flying right now, as Cody Welch has made up a full second to Nick in the last lap. And it's important to note, we're coming up here towards the first pit stop of the race, and I'm going to throw it out here, Chris. Brett Guzik just passed Christopher Hamilton, and he just ran 2.2 seconds faster than Nick on that lap. He is flying right now, and I think this is a strategy call. I'm going to say it. I think Nick is trying to do what Brett did to him a few races back. I think Nick's going for the long-term, economy play, and may even try to do this race on one stop. I don't know if it's possible, but if anybody can do it, I think it's the 2 car, and I think Brett's just putting the pedal down right now and trying to do it on pace.
Yeah, I like that. I like that call. I like that. Seeing Nick kind of stretch it there. I know he could probably stretch this league out to 10, 15 seconds. And I was wondering why I wasn't getting there. And I was actually going to ask you, your opinion on that. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think, Nick's probably trying to conserve a little fuel here, ride around. He doesn't have to push the pace. And maybe he can save some fuel. And Brett has to make up for that, not so ideal starting position, starting mid-pack. So, I mean, he's the last guy to beat Nick on a road course. So, I think it's come down to them twice this season. We saw it at Sonoma late where they, that fuel strategy game there. See if we'll have a little bit of the opposite of that this time. Maybe Brett's on the fresher tires, has more fuel, and Nick isn't necessarily in the most ideal situation. So that'd be super exciting to see if that comes to fruition.
I'm just about to watch this battle between 2 of the drivers that have been part of that kind of 3-headed monster we've seen all race of Gibson, Bivens, and Hart. Mark Allen Bivens has kind of lost the pace a little bit. He's fallen back into 8th position, about 5 seconds back of that battle between Gibson and Hart, and Gibson has now jumped ahead in that little tussle. So once again, Ricky Hart will chase a young driver, this time not being Mark Allen Bivens, instead being Connor Gibson. So we see Terry Condis go wide off the exit of the final chicane, right in front of this battle for second place between the hard-charging Brett Guzik and the impressively fast Cody Welch. And these are two guys who they've been adversaries in the past for a number of years. They've both made the Final Four, I believe, 3 times together. Of course, Guzik, a former champion, and Cody Welch to this point, not as of yet. But this is a battle with, I think, long-term implications. And I think it speaks to the fact that, remember, Cody Welch qualified on row number 2. Brett Guzik qualified back in 10th. So I think for Brett to get this pass done, to get ahead of Cody, would mean even more than just the average position. I think that sends a statement for how fast he is to open up tonight's race.
Yeah, Brett is really attacking this track right now. You can tell by the way he's approaching each corner. Cody's going a little bit wide, taking a more conservative approach, I believe. As you see him get a little loose there, getting onto NASCAR 2 and or 1 and 2 there. And I just heard Cody over the radio saying that he's going to come and pit this time. So lap 19, you're going to start seeing cars duck down pit road. With how aggressive Brett's been pushing, I'm wondering, curious if he's going to follow the 85 here.
Whoa! Cody goes long off the end of the chicane. Gonna probably get a time cut penalty. So no damage. He'll give the spot to Brett. He's pitting this time anyway. But that was a big moment there for Cody, and now really starting to drop back. So I think iRacing going to have assigned him a couple seconds worth of penalty there. But that final corner before his pit stop is the one that he made the mistake in. It's heartbreaking to see for the 85 car, but still making good time. Only lost about 2 seconds there. But that is going to open the gap up a little bit once again to the race lead, as Christopher Hamilton, teammate of Nick Nickerson, your race leader, is going to come down pit road in the 15 car. So your first 2 takers down pit road, they're looking to split this race pretty much exactly in half as they pit just before the halfway point. And meanwhile up front, that gap at 6 seconds. But I want to just say here, Chris, I think that gap between Nick and the rest of the field, particularly Brett Guzik, is the smallest it's ever been on the road courses. I think Brett is given the best challenge anybody has ever given to Nick in the series. Do you think there's any truth to that statement?
Yeah, I mean, Brett has been super fast. Obviously had to probably slow up a little bit there with that, it looked like Cody was, kind of go around there. So it looked like he slowed up to stay off the bumper of that 85 car. But, yeah, no, Brett's been super quick. I mean, obviously you drove up from 10th to 2nd now at this point. And, I'm really curious. You're seeing Nick not... it sounds like the 97 is going to be pitting in front of the 2 car here. But, Nick traditionally can go out here and put 10, 15 seconds on the field before anybody even comes down pit road, as we see the 2 car coming to pit road here.
Whoa, that was fast on pit road. That was...
We saw it last week. He had a couple mistakes on pit road.
We did.
It's not where you need it.
I'm trying to get better at identifying pit road speeding penalties when I see them. It was fast, but looking at his Skype camera, doesn't seem particularly frazzled, doesn't seem too worried, so I think he's okay. But man, he came in really high here. You saw how much speed he had on Eddie Hagge as he came in. He blew by him. So I don't know if that wasn't a penalty. That was impressively close there for Nick Nickerson.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I've said it in the past, the master of getting on and off pit road, and talk about timing that. I mean, that's incredible if you did not incur a penalty there. So I do want to ask you, though. I want your insight. You're the open wheel racer. You like this track a lot, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
I want to get your opinion here. So if you're the 2 car, are you going out here guns blazing, trying to put as much time on the field and then saving on the back end, or are you going to just save throughout and just be nice and steady, just run a nice moderate pace and then save it at the very end of the race? So just curious what your approach would be if you were the leader in this race.
I think with any race, the most mature thing and the best thing to do, not necessarily what's the most reasonable for the driver, but the best thing to do is, like you say, second, just settle into a rhythm, kind of just pick a pace that you've tested and practiced the week before that can work for you throughout an entire race, and something that maybe attacks the curbs a little bit less, but particularly just has kind of straighter turning motions. Like for this corner here with the bus stop, if you can minimize how much actual movement you have on the wheel in the corners and maybe try to straight line it a bit, potentially taking more curves at the cost of less tire wear, I think that's the key. And I think as well, taking less pressure off the tire, or take more pressure off the tires by coasting a little bit more into corners, bringing less speed into the braking zones. I think that's the biggest way that you can genuinely improve your run. I think it's better than you go really fast at the start, you burn your stuff up, you make that gap bigger, and then by the end you're absolutely killed on tires. You're driving a type of race car in a way that you haven't in your practice sessions. I think just best to make it predictable, drive a race car that you've driven before at that point in the tire cycle, and by just keeping a nice steady pace, that's the way you do that. That said, it's really hard to do that, especially at the end of a race as big as this. You want to go fast. You want to, for your own mental sake, see the gap between you and the guy behind getting bigger. So it's one thing to say that, to be patient. It's another thing to do it. And mentally, I think that's a tough game to play, to not just want to go as fast as you can right off the bat.
Yeah, I do like that, trying to settle into your pace. I'm just trying to get in the mindset of Nick as we are seeing his lead grow here as the pit cycled through. But what we also saw was the 85 car got back in front of the 04 car there on the pit cycle. So I don't know if there was trouble there for the 04 car. We saw him pass him right before the cycle. They're obviously right next to each other here on track, back to back. So they're not getting far away from each other, but that lead for the two cars seems to be growing again.
If you want to look at this battle for second here, somebody just pointed out in the YouTube chat, yes, Cody Welch has successfully pulled off the undercut to jump up into second. For those of you that maybe don't know what the undercut is, the undercut just refers to pitting a lap or two before your rivals, taking fresh tires, and then using those tires to run quicker while your other driver is on older tires, so that by the time they cycle back out of the pits, well, they may have fresher rubber, they are sitting behind you on the racetrack, and then you can start to play a defensive game to woe them up. And that is exactly what Cody Welch is doing, and this must be infuriating to Brett Guzik right now, because if you're Brett, you know you have good pace. You know you might even be able to go to try to catch Nick, as hard as it could be in these last 18 laps, but you can't do it if somebody on older tires is starting to slow you up. And I mean, as fast as Cody's running, he is definitely going to be halting the 04 car a little bit. So we'll see what this battle holds, but going to be a really fun one once again, kind of a rematch of this battle from a few laps back.
So just to kind of do some housekeeping here, we're saying the fuel window is roughly maximum about 19 laps. I believe the two car pitted on lap 20. I don't know if you have the graphic there handy, but I believe the two car pitted on lap 20. The 04 pitted on lap 19, and Welch pitted on 17, I believe.
19,
so,
just one lap.
19. Okay. So that'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's a 40-lap race, so it'll be interesting to see. These guys are probably going to have to save a little bit here. So trying to race somebody, as we're seeing the 85 car and the 04 car duke it out here for second place, while putting the 00 a lap down. But as they're duking it out, they're also going to have to find time to manage their fuel. So I love that part of road racing. I think that is so interesting, and it makes it so much more fun. I know we were talking about this a couple weeks back with managing tires and fuel and all this other things, but I think at road racing it really comes alive, where you have to manage your stuff and run fast laps, because you can't let the guy in front of you get too far ahead, because then you're saving fuel and you're never going to track him back down. So it's just a game within the game, and I love that.
And it's so unique to these road courses because they have longer laps than an oval. On an oval, you're going around every 30 or 40 seconds. You can just come down whenever you want. Whereas here we go. We see Brett Guzik comfortably powering down the inside line. Way more speed mid-straight, to the point where I think Cody almost lifted there a little bit. Maybe going to say, okay, I don't think I can hold you off forever. But I do think you can potentially go track down Nick. And if that's the case, then that could make things interesting here for Cody. But no, I think it's definitely a case of, if you can really put the power down here consistently over the course of the entire stint, and not have to worry quite as much about the fuel until the end, where you better know your situation. I think, again, as a driver, you talk about the mental side of things. You'd rather just be fast now, and then, okay, at the end of the stint, now I know where I sit. If I have to conserve really hard, well then, hey, at least I'm defending, and I think defending probably easier here at the Roval. But again, the more optimal strategy, I think, is to, again, just kind of temper your fuel, make realistic long-term estimations of how much you'll need to get to the end, especially based on the first stint. Because if you already went past halfway, which anybody that pitted on lap 20 pretty much did, then just do what you did again. But if you're Cody Welch and you got one lap to save here, which is tougher than it sounds, you have to decide, okay, am I going to run about the same fuel per lap, going to break it about the same spots as I did last time, and then save it all at the end in defensive mode? or do I find a way to really space it out over the whole run, and that way you never really find yourself too slow, but you're going to have a harder time catching the guys in front. That's the balance. That's why these races are such a fun strategy, Colin, and that's why I love the chess match that is most road course races.
I don't think you can put it any better than that, chess match. And if I'm thinking of chess matches here, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper with my tinfoil hat on here. If I'm thinking about road course racing in recent memory, and I'm that 85 car, I know that the 04 car and the 2 car have always come together on these 2 races here on the road courses. So you know what? You have a little bit more pace. I got to save a little fuel. Go ahead and track the 2 car down, and you guys can both wreck each other out, and I'll go take this win. So it might be a little bit of a strategy play as we see the 04 bump. Who was that in front of him?
It's Paul Wilson in the 86, yeah.
Give him a little bump to get out of the way there, saying, hey, I'm coming through, and I got this guy right behind me. So, yeah, that could be something there. I don't think, at this point in the race with, a 9-10 second lead, I don't think he's necessarily worried about that, but that could be something that's going through his mind, and that's the playoffs.
Well, I think regardless, I think if this stays the way it is, either Guzik and Welch swapping or even the 2 of them going to catch Nickerson, who again ran slower than both of them last time by, I think definitely starting to conserve is Nick Nickerson, then I think there's a very good chance we have a podium that you got to think the favorites for the title, the lot of them, I think, sorry folks, I think he was in pretty much everybody's brackets was Nickerson, and then Guzik and Welch as well were definitely pretty common contenders. So the 3 big names really flexing their guns early. Same with Christopher Hamilton, who we know is going to be fast. Connor Gibson would again be 5th out of the playoff contenders. I don't know how he pulls off a 5th in the point standings pretty much every race. He usually scores 5th best out of the playoff drivers, but doesn't actually score top 5s. I don't get it. And it would be the case again tonight. Just this race here tonight, Chris, really does feel like an extrapolation of the overall storylines of this season. Doesn't it? Like it feels like everything we talked about, what guys usually did, where they usually finished. I think tonight's the perfect microcosm of that. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's certainly playing out that way with the exception of, Lacey not being able to make it tonight. But, yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the field here, we've kind of seen everything happen the way it's happened, We were talking about Curtis Yancey's aggression, that kind of got him there on turn 1, lap 1. I think he has an opportunity here to kind of rebound and make up some points. Nick's starting to put cars a lap down. Curtis is still 1 lap down. So we'll see if he can kind of chip away at some of these cars in front of him and close that gap as we head into next week. But, yeah, like you said, you got guys that are being consistent, running up front. Christopher Hamilton, him and Sean Britt have now flip-flop positions once again. So you're having this kind of storyline that's got us to the playoffs playing out right in front of us.
As we see the pass here between Curtis Yancey and Eddie Hagge, Yancey would now officially become the 10th ranked playoff driver with Lacey out of tonight's race, and Hagge now the last place driver of the playoff contenders here in 17th. So Curtis Yancey, he's at least recovered 1 spot from his first lap wreck into the outside of turn number 1. He's recovered well, really, really well. Shown really good pace relative to the rest of the field, probably easily top 5 pace at this point. And he just has to go get Jackson knocked now, and he would move up to 9th on the outside fringes of the top 8. So, I mean, if he gets 1 more spot, a guy who wrecked himself on the first corner of a race with no cautions may make it back to the outside of playoff contention. And I think that is what is so fun about this format, is that it is exclusive. But this first round cutoff, there is a little bit of room for error. And I think that's why it's so fun, because you see stories of guys overcoming adversity like Curtis is trying to do right now.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important to manage a night like tonight where, we've said it all night, Nick Nickerson, the class of the field, and it's pretty much the field against him when we come to road courses. But for the rest of the field, it's how do I just get the best finish I can? And Curtis Yancey's showing us that here. Trouble on lap 1, turn 1. And he's making up points right now, and he has an opportunity to make up more as Nick puts people a lap down. So just staying in it, staying in the fight, and just trying to be consistent for the rest of the night is going to be huge. He can actually, if, at this pace, potentially be the 8th seed if Nick is able to lap as many people as I think he's going to. So he can still leave here in a decent spot, rather than if he would have just parked the car on lap 1 after he had that trouble, just being stuck in 11th because Lacey didn't start tonight. So Yeah, this is what you like to see is guys having to persevere and stay, you know, stick it through despite all their troubles, because you never know what could happen.
We're just going to go to the butt kicker racing replay here off something we just saw from Mark Allen Bivens here, who was currently sitting in 6th at the time. This long right-hander in the infield, a crucial corner, as Nick mentioned in the pre-race, and Mark Allen Bivens a little bit too late on the brakes, slides through the apex of the corner, and it's Ricky Hart Jr. who's going to capitalize and take over 6th position. Of course, Bivens going to settle it back down in 7th and is now right on the back of the number 1 car, still battling for 6th. And I see we got some support here tonight from Mark Allen Bivens in the chat, and important to mention to answer the question, yes, Mark Allen Bivens, former winner in the Bandit Racing League, won back at Daytona in season number 10, has long been one of the better drivers in the series, certainly I would say a consistent top 10 contender. And tonight, I think performing in the upper echelon of drivers behind the GFR guys, Brett and Cody, I think really, really great job tonight. Would you say, Chris?
Yeah, I'd say so. You know, I know it's a smaller field, and I don't want this to be a backhanded compliment, but this is a driver that's really progressed over the years, and I think that he's doing really well on the ovals, as we just saw the 51 make a move on the 00 for yet another position in the playoffs. But this is a driver that's progressed over the years. He came in and he was very hard on himself. You know, other drivers were pretty hard on him for mistakes he was making, and then the next season he came out, he got the most improved driver award. And then following season, I believe, is when he won at Daytona. And ever since then, he's just been on an upward trajectory. So I like this for him. He's getting experience in the playoffs, and he's getting experience at tracks that probably don't suit his driving style. He's a dirt racer, so you know, I think that's probably where he feels more comfortable. But I do like the thought of him. Just get the maximum amount of points tonight, and then I think he's going to be pretty dangerous. Obviously, at Talladega, another plate track, but I think he's going to be pretty dangerous at Chicagoland. With the package that we have here and the way he's been running at tracks similar to that, I think that he'll be up in the top 5 once again.
Yeah, I was going to mention, like, former plate track winner to have one here in the round. Got to think Mark Allen Bivens is going to have that one circled on the calendar. And remember here, folks, with the playoff configuration we have here in the Bandit Racing League for this season, if you win a race in the playoff round, similar to the regular season, you have automatic entry into the next race, provided you make every race in that round. So Mark Allen Bivens, if he's on the outside looking in, heading into Talladega, and then he wins that race, he would then move up into contention for the playoffs there. He would move on to the round of 8 automatically, as would any other driver if they win a race in this round. And if Nick is able to make every race after winning tonight, if he's able to, then he would indeed automatically secure a spot in the round of 8. So that's a big element. It's balancing the consistency of wanting to just rack up good points, not make any mistakes, as we see Eddie Haggy pass Jackson Knock, who will now come down for his second pit service of the race. But yeah, it's balancing the wanting to just be consistent and pick up good points at every race versus, well, if I just like really push it over the top one particular event, well, I'm in the playoffs automatically. So it really is a balancing act, like many things here in this series. But here we go. Sean Britt going to go on the attack here at the moment against Cody Welch. This will be for the 3rd position, and Sean has been heating up here. The Rolesville, North Carolina native has been fast, and I think, again, as a guy who, you said it, Chris, arguably should have been in the playoffs here had it been for not missing a couple races. Well, Sean Britt is he's going to be hungry, and I think would love to make a definitive statement to the rest of the series by scoring a top 3, top podium tonight.
Yeah, I think he's trying to make some noise here, and I'm wondering here if this is a difference in strategies where the 85 car is trying to stretch his fuel and the 98 car saying, I can't make it, so I'm going to push to get as much time as I can, as we're going to see him make a move here. And the chicane looks like he's going to get it done as he hops the curb, comes to the line. We have a car stop there, probably for cutting the chicane there, but yeah, I think that's what we're seeing right now, is that I don't just based on how fast he is right now, I think that it's more along the lines of he knows he can't make it and he's not willing to try and save, and he's just going to go all out and try to gain as much time and hope those other guys run out of fuel. But at this rate, I mean, this is kind of insane to think about. Nick has been consistently holding around a 8, 9, 10-second lead, and I really don't think that he's pushing the car right now. But he's on pace to probably lap up to 8th, 7th, maybe. He'll definitely get 9th, I think, by the end of the race. But depending on how many other people maybe don't make it on fuel. But this is a guy that's not pushing the car, in my opinion. I think he's saving to make this a one-stop race, but I just think that's crazy. If he was pushing and he had to pit again and fuel strategy was out the window, I think he'd probably lap up to 4th or 5th. That shows you how much skill this guy has, and that's probably the reason that we dialed them up to give you guys the run through at the beginning of the broadcast. And if you guys like that stuff, let us know. We'll try to incorporate that more. And I know Marshall always likes to please the fans here, so we'll try to tag on some different drivers throughout the playoffs if you guys like that kind of experience.
Yeah, if you guys liked it, I'd love to do a ride-along track lap with every driver, just if there's not as much interest, having somebody agree to do it. We want to make sure that we're taking time out of their pre-race prep for a good reason. So let us know if you guys enjoyed it here in the chat down below. But Curtis Yancey here getting another spot, moving up to 14th as Paul Wilson comes down pit road. So recovering really well. And if he's able to get one more spot, which it's 14 seconds ahead to Matt Crockett, we saw one off track there a moment ago, to claw his way all the way back to 13th, that is not bad there for Curtis Yancey.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting 4th and being, 13th, not ideal, but considering the position that he was in, I'd say that's a great night. I'd be ecstatic if I was him. So, yeah, I mean, that's just the name of the game, and just kind of staying in it. I think that's so important throughout the playoffs. I think this is going to see that as a a constant theme. You're going to see guys get wrecked in races and them just trying to baby the car all the way home and let other guys wreck out. And, oh man, if I just stay out on track for 2 more laps and get 2 more laps on this other guy, I'll jump 1 more position. That's 1 more point. Regardless if it's a playoff driver, that 1 point can mean, make or break at the end of a round. So I think you're going to see that all playoffs long, and I think that's what makes this format so exciting.
One driver I want to mention here very quickly is the guy at the back end of the top 10. We barely talked about him tonight at all, but the brother of the second place driver right now, Dawson Guzik. Dawson is here, the Pottsville, Pennsylvania native in the 44 car, doing a really, really stellar job tonight. And I think in contention here to potentially, it'll be tough, but maybe stay on the lead lap against Nick at a road course. Always an impressive feat, and is really pulling out good pace here. And Dawson was in contention. He was in the running for a playoff spot this year. I think if he can get a full year together, I think if he can continue to put in the work and get that 44 car faster and faster and stay out of trouble next season, I think could be a dark horse for the season 12 playoffs. And that's why I like seeing the 44 car succeed. So just want to give some praise here to the guy at the back end of the top 10, having a really good run here tonight.
I love that shout out. Dawson's obviously, he's been up in the booth with us a couple times throughout the past couple of seasons, and such a great guy, such a knowledgeable guy. I know he doesn't have necessarily the time that he wants to commit to this right now. I know he's a pretty busy guy with work and everything, so it's probably pretty tough for him, as we're seeing the 15 car put a move on the 85 here on the backstretch. Looks like he's going to get it done. 85 car's not going to put up much of a fight, but yeah, that 44 car of Dawson Guzik, very knowledgeable, and I think he has the ability to get it done if he had more time to commit to it. But yeah, I love seeing him in the top 10, and I do think, depending on what car we go to for next season, which we'll announce at the end of the season. I know we've had some comments in the YouTube chat about that the past couple weeks. Yeah, depending on what we're going to be running next season, I think that he'll definitely make some noise in season 12.
Looking around the field as well, I just want to make sure as we come here to the last couple of laps here tonight at the Roval, again, a quick race, because quick laps here, and 40 laps is traditionally the number we do here in the road courses in the Bandit Racing League. And we just want to make sure we get some shout outs here to every driver who's had a really good race tonight but has maybe flown under the radar. Another one here, we're going to go to Benny Hogan, qualified 16th, now up to 12th. The Troy, North Carolina native is just outside the lead lap here. He got lapped here a couple moments ago by Nick Nickerson, but Benny Hogan, not traditionally a road course guy first, is always more of an oval guy first and foremost, but again, not a bad night tonight here. Staying towards the top end of the field for a non-playoff guy is impressive. And again, we've talked about it a lot, but the role these non-playoff guys will play in the playoff order, his doing as well as he has tonight is going to play an effect on the rest of the field.
Yeah, and I was just kind of talking about it there with the car. I think that next season we won't be running the older Cup car. Not quite sure what we're going to be running yet. I know that Bill has a good idea of what we'll be running for next season, but I think you're going to see a bigger difference in who we have running up front. And when I think of guys that maybe are suffering from this car that we've been running this year, I think of Benny Hogan. That's a guy that runs up front. I know that he likes the short tracks. He likes the ovals, obviously. But you know, he ran up front a lot of last season, and he made some noise towards the end of the season. I remember him contending for wins, and him and Bill had swapped car numbers around at one point, and ever since then he was kind of set on fire. So yeah, I'm hoping that Benny can kind of recapture that fire that he had some of last season, maybe going into next season. But yeah, that's another driver that I'm looking for big things next season.
Well, 5 laps to go here. We are still watching this battle here between Hart and Bivens, kind of the only scrap we have left on track meaningfully for position between playoff guys. We're going to cut back to it in a moment. Very quickly, we just want to quickly shout out the Bandit Racing League website. We talk about it every week. We go over it quite a bit because it is a very important tool for you guys as Bandit Racing League fans to go check out. First of all, you got a link to our season schedule and the results of every race on our Sim Racer Hub site, but it also has a link to our merchandise site at geezerauthentics.com, and that is the place you want to go for all things Bandit Racing League apparel and hats and pants and shirts, of course, and hoodies, and anything you can imagine for a variety of drivers now, including Cody Welch. We have Eddie Hagge. We have Nick Nickerson. We have Kevin Foster. We have the series branding in general. We have so many awesome products there, courtesy of BanditRacingLeague.com and GeezerAuthentics.com. And if you want to learn more about the series in general, see our former winners from last season, see the past of the Bandit Racing League, find out who some previous champions were, and all of this fun info, that is what you go check out. And again, just a reminder here, folks, we now have merchandise here for Cody Welch as well. We're just going to show you through here again on the website, but if you go to the merch site, don't forget the Cody Welch merchandise for all you 85 fans out there is now released. We know there's plenty of you, so variety of colors, variety of sizes, anything you'd like. You can also get water bottles, shirts, lanyards, pennants, anything you can imagine. The place to go check it out is GeezerAuthentics.com. The link is in the description down below, and it was having some issues here for a few weeks. The link now works without issues. So just want to give that shout out here before the end of tonight's race. Go check it out, and remember, all sponsors and all proceeds courtesy of GeezerAuthentics.com. Anything you guys buy goes back into the series directly and goes towards the driver points fund, which is how we repay drivers at the end of the season. It's like a cash prize. It's like a purse at the end of the year for drivers based on their finishing positions in the series to help pay back the drivers for the hard work they put in this series and putting on this entertainment for us every week on Wednesdays. They get the proceeds back out of it as part of the points fund. So really awesome initiative, and we appreciate all of those who support the series in that way. And now we come down to 3 laps to go, and halfway through his third to last lap here, Nick is on the charge, and we'll talk about him in a moment here, Chris. But a podium of Nickerson, Guzik, and it's looking like it's going to be Britt. Now it's full 12 seconds ahead of Hamilton, and then Cody Welch here in the back. We're going to want to show the Cody Welch incident that happened here a moment ago, because that is what changed everything. Cody Welch here off the final turn. I believe it's right up here that the mistake happens. There it is. Big slide, locks it up, and the 85 car puts it in the wall in turn 1.
Yeah, uncharacteristic for him, I mean, give it up to this point in the race, but, you know, I think that's just kind of showing how much you're trying to push and get everything you can, but, you know, you can fall back into to the grips of Connor Gibson here. That's going to slowly be closing up on him, so we'll have to keep our eye on that in the closing laps, but, yeah, it looks like Nick Nickerson going to lead flag to flag here, which is super impressive when you can do that anywhere, but, you know, at a track like this where it's so tough, and there are so many areas where you can make mistakes. You know, that is so impressive. But also, shout out to Benjamin Lacey in the chat. Thanks for making it in tonight. Our defending race winner is going to be in the chat here tonight. So thanks for making it by, and hope to see you next week.
Yeah, great to see you, Benjamin. Hopefully you get the provisional for tonight's race so you can stay in contention for the rest of the round. And here we go. Final couple of corners here. Just want to give an update on this battle that never really resurfaced, as Ricky Hart Jr. now comfortably ahead of Mark Allen Bivens there for the 7th position. So tonight's final order here for the playoff guys. We're going to watch Nick come up towards the last lap here in just a few moments' time. But the final order here, Chris, is going to be Nick, Brett, Christopher, Cody, Connor, as in Gibson, Ricky Hart, Mark Allen Bivens, Kevin Foster, Curtis Yancey, Jackson Knock, and Eddie Hagge. Those are your playoff drivers in order. And then, of course, 12th, Benjamin Lacey, who was unable to make tonight's race, but will be back for the rest of the round. And what's the biggest surprise for you there in these finishing orders here, Chris? Who is surprising you as far as maybe finishing better or worse than you would have expected based on their playoff seeding?
That's a good question. I mean, like you said, it's kind of everything what we expected. I would say Curtis Yancey with his trouble, but he's really rebounded really well, despite his trouble. So I'd say that's probably the biggest surprise here tonight. That was our big moment of the race for one of our playoff drivers, and yeah, I mean, everybody else has kind of had their typical race and has done everything they had to do right. So I like how we're starting it off. It's gonna make for a very exciting Talladega, and then the next couple of weeks it's gonna be really tight. So I'm liking that.
Here he comes, the 2-car, for the final time through the infield tri-oval, and it almost feels like a video game to me here, Chris. You know, Nick Nickerson, for a long time in this series, has been the sort of final boss. You know, he's that last guy you deal with. As we see Dawson Guzik off the road here on the very last lap you saw in the background there. We'll see if he can still bring it home for 10th. As Cody Welch down pit road on the final lap. He's going to come up 1 lap short. Going to lose a spot to Hart, to Bivens, maybe even to Foster. Massive pit stop here. Comes 1 lap short on fuel. Crucial strategy mistake there from Cody Welch. From 3rd a few moments ago down to 8th, maybe even 9th here. We'll see where he comes out, but final couple of corners here for Nick. I was just about to say, Nick has really felt like the final boss in the series for a while, as Welch will lose the spot to Foster. Now they're going to be battling here in a moment, but the 2-car is just been unstoppable for years of these road courses. He finally got beat by the hero in the last race, and good villains always find a way to fight back when they're beaten. Call him the villain, call him the hero, whatever you call him. The 2-car is the first winner of the Bandit Racing League Season 11 playoffs, winning here in the Big Red Propane Big Red Propane 40 here at the Roval. Wins with the sponsor on the car. Great job there by Nick. He'll be the first driver locked into the round of 8, and he does it at a track you know he was excited for. Guzik and Britt should round off the podium. But here we go. This is going to be a fun tussle, as it's going to be Foster and Welch here. The 2 drivers close for position, 2 seconds separating them. Cody presumably did not take tires, and I don't think will make up the gap. So in the end here, Chris, Cody Welch goes from 3rd all the way down to 9th in the span of just a couple laps.
I think we spoke too soon about the surprise of the race. I didn't see that one coming. I thought he was conserving there to make it all the way to the end, but I guess pitting that 1 lap sooner was what got him in the end. So that's a tough break for him. He ran so well all night long.
Here he comes off the final couple of corners. Cody Welch will come home for 9th position, but your race winner here, folks, Nick Nickerson. He's done it in a dominant performance, pulls the perfect game, goes start to finish, and we'll win it here at the Charlotte Roval. He gave us the pre-race rundown of the first lap, the perfect lap, and he ran the perfect lap 40 laps in a row. Great job there by Nick Nickerson, your winner and the first driver in the second round of the playoffs.
Also quite notable, we were talking about how he didn't have one. Connor Gibson, first top 5 of the season.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Congratulations to Connor Gibson. That's a great shout there, Chris. He has done it. Does it to start off the playoffs, too. So to see that Connor Gibson going to kick it up another gear, that is what you want to see from especially a young driver in his first playoff. Same for Christopher Hamilton. Great job to get consistent points. Good for Sean Britt to make the podium here a week after heartbreakingly missing the playoffs. But we are ready here, folks. It is time for your first interview here with Nick Nickerson, and it should be a quick pre-show, just as it's been a quick race, quick broadcast tonight. So stay tuned with us, stay around for 20 more minutes, and then we will let you get off to the rest of your Wednesday night. Always appreciate you guys sticking around to hear from your race winners. So here we go, race winner Nick Nickerson. We'll see if maybe he had different thoughts on the event than we had from our perspective, but we will find out here momentarily. Let's get him up here in the broadcast booth. Nick Nickerson, it is Marshall and Chris up in the broadcast booth. You got a copy?
How's it going, man?
Clean as a whistle, smooth sailing. You lead 40 laps from the pole, Nick. It was looking pretty comfy up there for the most part, but it must be pointed out, some of those guys behind you were running pretty quick. There was some good pace there at the start, but it looked like in that second stint you kicked it into another gear. What do you think it was that made those other contenders fade off?
I mean, it wasn't really that they faded or, dude. This wasn't comfortable by any means, man. Like, that was probably one of the hardest races I've ever run.
Really?
Because I was having to save fuel the whole time, and I am the absolute worst at saving fuel. And I was able to save enough fuel to run one more lap than I thought I would originally. I thought I would have to pit lap 20, so I was able to pit on, I thought I had to pit on lap 19, but I was able to pit on lap 20. going to 21. But then I had to fuel save the entire second stint as well because, as a matter of fact, I ran out of fuel. I had 0.22 gallons left when I
Wow.
crossed the start-finish line. I ran out of fuel trying to do a burnout.
Wow.
And sounds like Brett ran out of gas on the backstretch. And that was kind of the game. It wasn't about who was fast and who wasn't. It was all who could be fast and save enough fuel to make it to the ends. Those are really the game we played today.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like that was the only challenge anybody was going to have. We thought you were kind of dialed in there, so crazy to know that things were that much more exciting for you. You're getting a push here from your teammate, I noticed on the live camera. We'll cut to that here very quickly. But, yeah, in the big picture, I mean, you get the win to start off your playoffs, and I think we've talked about it in the past, but we like to talk about momentum and making an impact and reminding the guys of your abilities here. And it was really close here in the regular season. You were the regular season champ, but you could argue a lot of guys were up there fighting for that top spot. Obviously, Benjamin brought the most momentum in last week, but to be the first guy into the round of 8, you get to focus your sights ahead. What's that do for you mentally, knowing that you know what 4 racetracks are going to end off your competitive season? Do you start preparing now, or do you still go into these next few weeks going, I want to start racking up those wins, really build that momentum?
Yeah, I mean, I could give you some elongated, BS answer, but really I'm not even thinking about that kind of stuff. At this point, I'm just here to help my teammates out from moving forward. And, we all know me in the road courses, there's a good percentage chance that I'm going to win it, so it's almost a guaranteed. Although, again, Brett was only, I think, 5 seconds behind me, so every one of these races he gets just a little bit faster. He's figuring it out. If he's not already, I mean, he probably could have won this if he didn't qualify halfway through the fields. Who knows? But soon enough, it's not going to be a guaranteed thing. That's for sure. But yeah, I'm just kind of focused on help my teammates out at this point and try to get pretty much all of them to the round of 8.
Yeah.
So, and then we can all duke it out for the last 4 positions. But yeah, man, I just one week by week and try to learn as much as I can and put myself in a good position to help a teammate out or win myself. And yeah, man.
Beauty. Well, there you go, Nick. You're always well put, always simple. And I do just want to point out here, because, Brett, that last lap battle at Sonoma to start the year was great. That was so much fun to watch there. In the first road course, obviously won the second and came within 5 seconds in the third. I think you could make a good argument. You guys were pretty comparable here, at least this season for the road courses, but that is to ignore the fact that you did win 2 of them, of the 3, and were definitely, was a first turn collision away from winning the third. So it was a good season overall for both of you, a great competition. But I'll throw it to you now, and I mean, you know what to do here with these post-race interviews. If you have any shout-outs, you want to give any sponsors, but also if you want to maybe throw us a quick shout-out to your teammates as well. You were just talking about them, and maybe what you see for them as well to wrap up tonight.
Yeah, man, between Chris Hamilton, Kevin Foster, and Ricky Hart, and then a kind of unofficial teammates. They hang out in the Discord, but Cody Welch and Benjamin Lacey, and also Paul Wilson, I think it is. I know it's Ricky's friend, yeah. We all have been kind of working together. I came up with the idea to have them 785 come down in our chat. That way we kind of work together and see if maybe we can kind of build the racing in general just better in Bandit, with the 6 or 7 of us. And I think it has. We kind of bounce ideas off each other during the races and stuff, and it became kind of a fun thing to do on, it's not just strict teammates anymore, but yeah, man, they all been pretty killer this season. So looking forward to seeing what's going to happen in this playoffs. It's going to be crazy, points are reset for a lot of these guys. So, but other than that, I just got to thank Big Red, Clutch Automotive, Advanced Auto Parts, Sueño de Yato, XL Auto Parts, Perfect Shine Auto Spa, and of course, Apex Sim Racing. And I got to appreciate you guys for doing your broadcasts. I'll probably give it a couple days before I watch this because this was an agonizing race. I'll eventually watch it.
Well, it's a quick one, to be fair. It's only an hour and a half, so a more brief viewing experience for you.
Yeah, man. But yeah, other than that, man, that's all I got. And I'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you as always. I like you calling your shot. When you say I'll see you next week, it feels like you mean in the broadcast, and you're probably not wrong. So yeah. Thank you, Nick, as always. That 2 car is looking great, and we'll see you at Darlington next week.
Hey, man. Take care.
Thank you, sir. Awesome. There we go. First interview of the night down with your race winner, Nick Nickerson. Picks it up again at the Roval. Another road course win down for the road course master himself. Now for his runner up, the guy who definitely gave him a really good run for his money, but unfortunately comes up just short. It is the 04 car. Brett Guzik will pick up his 6th top 5 on the season. And here he comes into the broadcast booth. And now we will put up on the top your live ticker, giving you the final results here for the entire series and where drivers finished in tonight's final scoring of tonight's race. And as well, remember the P stands for playoff. So any drivers with the P next to their name in playoff contention. But remember, every spot is for position. So there is no, you don't just ignore the spots in between drivers, because I know some points scoring systems do that. We do not, and we just want to make that very clear. So with that, we are ready for your second place interview here with the driver of the number 04 car, Mr. Brett Guzik. Let's get him up here in the broadcast booth. Hey, Brett, it is Marshall and Chris up in the broadcast booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I've got you guys.
Hey, Brett. Well, amazing performance as always here at the road courses. We were just talking with Nick about how that battle for road course supremacy in this series is really a 1A, 1B scenario at this point, because you were the fastest car on track for a lot of the race. You were conserving really well. And the speed you had at the beginning of the end of the first stint and the end of the second stint made it just seem like you were conserving better. Did that seem what it was like from your perspective? And you think maybe a few more laps, you could have gone for your second race win of the year?
Yeah, I kind of threw it away there towards the end of the race. I mean, ultimately, I didn't do myself any justice there by throwing away a qualifying lap as well. I think the first lap under qualifying, first turn, rear end just took off and I slapped the wall. And then the second lap that I ran, I blew a couple of the corners, so it put me mid-pack. And then ultimately, when you get stuck behind 10 other cars or 9 other cars, then you ultimately start the race like 15 seconds behind the leader after 10 laps or so. So I had to make up quite a bit of time. I know I had good long run pace, but obviously Nick is going to be quick. I knew any weakness that he had was going to be on old tires. He's very quick at the beginning. He's faster than me at the beginning of the run, but at the end of the run, it seemed like I could hang on and keep the car straight for more often than he could, and I would kind of propel me forward throughout the run. And so at the end, with like 5 laps to go, I actually kind of lost a little bit of focus, I think, and I blew the bus stop, and I had to do a slowdown. And while I was doing the slowdown, my screen went to non-full screen, and I had to click it back into full screen while I was like shifting. So I basically lost like 4 seconds doing that. And then I think the lap later, I blew the turn coming onto the front straightaway and had another slowdown. So that's basically the difference in the race right there. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we had the pace to do it. We just did everything to lose it.
Yeah, heartbreaking stuff, and obviously the playoffs. These race wins are more important than ever, but still, you come out of this as the second highest scoring playoff driver. It's 8 drivers move on to the next round. You just got to be top 8 out of 12, and you get off here to a pretty good start. But does any part of you, think with Nick moving on here to the next round, having him locked in, was going into tonight at the road course that starting to feel like a certainty, or is your confidence here with these road courses started to build in accordance with your finishing positions? Because remember, you won the last road course race in the series. Was tonight's still one of those races you had circled as a potential Nick win guaranteed, or were you really betting on yourself tonight?
I felt like I could get something done. I didn't know that I would have as much pace as I did, I would say, tonight. I knew like I could, if I did everything perfect, I would have a shot, but I didn't think that if I just, had driven, 99%, that I could have got it done, but it just never happened, and just had to, just have a little bit of focus and confidence I can keep banging off, decent laps early in the run, and then just allow my forward drive on the slow sections to take care of any time at the end of the runs. So, but yeah, just getting used to at least doing pretty decent on road courses now. It was actually the first time I ran oval wheel with a sequential shifter, so I at least felt comfortable. So there's that. and we'll move on to Darlington.
Yes, sir. And yeah, just to cap it off, you've been here in the playoffs a number of times, former champion. You know what it's like here at the start. How do you think the 04 car and how you drive here at the start of the playoffs? Do you think there's a big difference versus the way you're going to go into if you're a championship contender at Homestead? How do you feel like your driving will change at Darlington next week versus how it'll be in the finale in a few weeks' time?
It'll be probably quite different from Darlington to how we run at Homestead. I'm pretty comfortable at Darlington. I may not have like initial, scraping pace at the beginning of the run, but I know that if I manage the tires, that I could probably have better pace than most everyone if I just hold it together for the beginning of the run, the front side of the run, and that's what I guess you guys should look forward to next week is the comers and the goers of the run next week, and whether people are putting in the wall 10 laps in or just hanging on.
Yes, sir. We're excited to watch. That always tends to make good races, all that chaotic scrambling around. So, well, we appreciate it as always, Brett. Great to talk to you. Great to have you back up here in the podium. And you're a veteran. You're a former champ. You know what we do here at the end of the interviews. If you got any friends or family you want to shout out, any sponsors to mention, or anything you just want to talk about, now is your opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody who puts this on every week. I'd like to thank all the admins, Nicole, Bill, for putting this on. Marshall and Chris, you guys for putting on such a good broadcast every week. We obviously watch it every week, and we like the product. And I'd just like to thank the sponsor for this race, Big Red Propane, and along with Kevin Foster for helping us out this season with this series.
Yeah, I always thank them for their support, and we appreciate you giving them their flowers there. So thank you as always, Brett. Again, a great, really, really good run from the 04 car tonight. I see you and Nick on an almost even peg now these days at the road courses, and it's good to see because we've needed a challenger, we've needed a hero here in this series for a few years, and you're seeming like you're going to be that guy. So thank you, Brett. Great run tonight. You're starting your playoffs off on a high, and we'll see you next week at Darlington.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
There you go. First time we're talking to Brett here in these playoffs, but more than likely will not be the last time. But for the last interview of the night to cap off our broadcast here in a few moments' time, we go to Sean Britt, driver of the number 98 car. He finishes third here in Charlotte, just a week removed from heartbreakingly missing the playoffs here. And tonight we'll see what his perspective was and how much he's looking forward to the rest of the season going forward, even out of the playoffs. Hey, Sean, it is Marshall and Chris up in the broadcast booth. Got a copy?
Yeah, I got a copy.
Oh, Sean, how are you doing tonight? I feel like the podium tonight was a really, really good run. It looked like you were definitely in the upper echelon. I know there were some mistakes around you towards the end, but first week as a driver, he was really just here to do his best to try to upset these playoff guys, and that's exactly what you did tonight. It was the first race as kind of the playoff spoiler tag. Was it everything you kind of hoped it would be?
Yeah, for most part, it wasn't really checking it off as win to win. If I would, I would. But yeah, just wanted to show off these guys. Hey, I have the speed. I can keep up with you guys. Let's go and dance a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really did, and all the way throughout. It looks like the battling was there at the beginning. Everybody was fighting for position, but then we settled into a groove, and it was actually conservation, mostly of fuel, that became the question. How did you find that your lifting and coasting was going, and did you have problems there towards the end like everybody else did?
Yeah, it's more just it was more just hitting the marks and not over pushing the car and hitting the right fuel mark and just doing all of that at the same time while you're racing and shifting.
And then we look through tonight because obviously another good performance here at the road courses. You were actually my pick for the race besides Nick tonight, seeing your follow-up at Road America, and I was really excited to see your run. You did great because I think Brett and Nick in front of you were they're in a different tier, obviously, and they want more Bandit Racing League championships. But going into the rest of the playoffs here, Darlington, and then obviously Chicagoland and Talladega, we want to see that first win from the 98 car. And do you get the sense we'll get it here potentially in the next few weeks with the series of tracks we have ahead?
It might happen either Talladega or Chicago. Darlington, I'm gonna probably get like maybe a top 5, top 10, something to be proud at. Darlington isn't it's a lady luck track, Not everyone, gets that good treatment that some other people do, but we'll try and fight. We'll try and get good and just finish well.
Beautiful.
If we can get a win, we'll get a win.
Yeah, if you can call your shot for a top 5 pretty confidently, that's always a good sign here in this series. So I'm glad to see you got your hopes high for the rest of the year. I know we want to see that 98 car fighting, even despite the unfortunate missing out last week. But no, it was a great run from you tonight, Sean. Always glad to have you back for another podium. That 98 car has been stellar this year, and I can't wait to see it when you're back in the playoffs next season. I'm sure if you can make the full year, you are one of the favorites there, you got to think. And you know what to do here in the interviews. You've been in quite a few this season. So any sponsors, friends, or family I want to mention, or anything else that you want to go over? Now's your time to do so.
Yeah, I just want to thank LAT Racing Oils, Apex Sim Racing, everyone from Bandit who sets everything up with all of the race controls, Bill, you, everyone that sponsors these races, Kevin. Just it's nice to always have these whenever we can, just being able to run, have a good laugh, and when something happens, you just gotta brush it off. You just move to next week and just hope that it ain't like that again.
Amazing. We thank you very much, Sean. I'm having an issue where for whatever reason we have I have dropped out. Apparently you guys at home can hear the sound. I cannot. But we appreciate everything for you. Unfortunately, I can't hear you here for the very end. But we thank you for everything. Another great performance here tonight, and we hope you have a great rest of your week going forward. And we look forward to seeing what you do at Darlington.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, as always, to Sean Britt here. And yeah, this is a very interesting scenario here, folks, where I now have no audio as far as I cannot physically hear anything out of my headset. I can't. I'm unable currently to detect why that might be. But maybe you, oh, okay, we can hear me at home. So that's the important part. We're going to get through the last couple minutes here because at least we got through the interviews. And Chris, we'll give you, in just a sec, we're going to give you one more section to kind of go through your stuff. But I can't hear you, Chris, or anybody else here in the booth. So this will be interesting. I'm going to go over my stuff here at the very end. One more time, folks, we want to remind you guys of the Bandit Racing League Bracket Challenge. Remember, we showed you the bracket here earlier. It is posted to all of our social medias, including our Instagram. So if you want to enter the Bandit Racing League Bracket Challenge, you have until the end of next week. Next week is the cutoff for the Bandit Racing League Bracket Challenge. Before next week's race, you need to have it submitted. We will let you have the week before, but at that point, you need to have your officially submitted bracket. And remember, you don't necessarily need to take this photo and make your own picks on it, although you're welcome to, and that picture will be posted to the Instagram, so you can just take it right off there, do it yourself at home. Or you can just send us in the email we posted there, FSRNBRL@gmail.com. Just post your rundown of each round. Put like round of 12, round of 8, and then the final, and predict who you think will be the champion. And we will then give you your prize, a prize package of GeezerAuthentics.com merchandise, courtesy of Chris and I here at Full Send Racing Network. It's our gift back to you guys. We really want to thank you for supporting the series. So again, there's the email down below for that. As far as the rest of the housekeeping, we obviously have our sponsor of tonight's race, Big Red Propane. We want to thank Big Red Propane, as always, for sponsoring not only the first round of our playoffs, but most of the season as a whole on behalf of GFR Racing. They're one of the series' best sponsors. And again, we want to thank Kevin Foster, again, as part of a partner of that series. He really is the guy that controls a lot of the sponsors on behalf of not only that team, but the entire league. And we also want to give a shout out to the owner of Big Red Propane, Frank. We hope watching the race tonight. Frank, thank you as always for sponsoring tonight's race on behalf of Big Red Propane and everything you've done for the series in the past. That being said here, folks, finally, we have your series sponsors, your series partners here, and we'll go over them here quickly. We got Bandit Racing League, courtesy of iRacing, the sim that puts this all on. Apex Sim Racing, your place for premier sim racing accessories to get into sim racing yourself, whether it be the upcoming F1 game or iRacing or NASCAR or anything you want to play. The Apex Sim Racing has all sorts of great sim racing products to help you get your own rig set up and get into sim racing for proper. Perfect Shot Auto Spa, as always, courtesy of Kevin Foster and GFR Racing, a longtime sponsor of the series. We thank them for their weekly support. Track Camps Gourmet is your place for custom iRacing track cameras. The link to their stuff in the description down below, and we use them every week. So if you want a premier camera package for your iRacing service for commercial or broadcast use, just check that out in the description. Remember to get exclusive licensing for broadcasting. EvanWallMedia.com, we thank, as always, for his graphics packages that are the backbone of this series. Always doing cool stuff there on his EvanWallMedia.com channel. So the former broadcaster, current broadcast partner with the graphics, we always want to support him, so go check him out if at all possible. Then we got Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker is, of course, a premier name in the world of sim racing. They make really cool base shakers that really enhance your sim and add that real-world element. And finally, Moza Racing, on behalf of our partners for sim racing. They, again, make premier sim racing products, including wheels that are some of the best on the market. Bill Harkins in our series has used one for a very long time and is extremely complimentary of his. So we thank you, as always, Moza Racing, for supporting the series. And finally, GeezerAuthentics.com, your place for all things Bandit Racing League merchandise. Remember, you will get a free prize package courtesy of them if you were the winning bracket here at the end of the season. And we also want to thank SimRacerHub.com here for giving us all of our stats and info courtesy of the series. With that being said, I continue to not be able to hear anything out of my headset as far as my co-commentator. So Chris, we're going to throw it to you here. We're going to let you cap it off. And I'm going to give you a very pointed and specific question. And we just need to know that I won't hear you, but the fans at home will. And I will have to come up with a segue out of it. But here, just Chris, overall tonight, really fun race at Roval. The win probably goes the way we expect with Nick Nickerson picking up the W and moving on to the round of 8. But Darlington next week, the track too tough to tame. Do you think this is really one of the last opportunities maybe for the top drivers here before Chicagoland, which would be kind of a crazy race, and Talladega, which would be a wild card? Do you think that next week will be the chance for the top Bandit Racing League drivers that we think of as the elite drivers to really cement themselves before the craziness starts? And then also wrap that into any final thoughts or any plugs you have, and just know that I won't hear you, but the fans at home will.
Yeah, so coming out of tonight, obviously some storylines that we didn't expect, right? So Curtis Yancey kind of clipping the wall there on lap 1. Rebounded really well. Cody Welch having that fuel mileage not go his way towards the end there. And then obviously Benjamin Lacey. Cody Welch is currently on the bubble. He's in 8th in points, and Curtis Yancey is in 9th. He's 4 points behind Cody Welch. So that is a bit of a story going into Darlington. And speaking of which, I think that is a track, like you were saying, is where some of the more elite of the league can kind of stretch their legs and kind of flex their muscles there next week. So looking forward to that. That's going to be a good one, and the rest of this round is going to be very exciting. So it's going to be a dogfight all the way to the end to just make it to the round of 8, and then from there we'll pick up going into the next round. But yeah, some really good racing tonight. I know that it was kind of the Nick Nickerson show once again, but he kind of told you in his post-race interview there it wasn't as easy as it looked. So that's always good to see. I like seeing this field kind of stack back up and get a little bit closer. So as always, I know you can't hear me, Marshall. Thank you for having me. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, Bandit Racing League, as well as Facebook, the Bandit Racing League on Facebook. We're going to have all of our announcements, our playoff points updates, all that stuff, all that good stuff will be up there every single week. So make sure you're checking us out on there. And thanks for everybody for coming out tonight and watch the broadcast. We'll see you next week.
There we are. Awesome. Hopefully everything there came through loud and clear, and hopefully you guys caught all that. Looks like you guys did, according to my telemetry. Unfortunately, Chris, couldn't hear you there, but I always appreciate everything you do for the series, and it was a really fun time co-commentating tonight alongside you to start off the playoffs. These are the ones that matter. These are the ones where every week, more storylines than ever. Each pass matters more than ever. And tonight, again, pretty ho-hum by the books, but we promise you we'll be back for the rest of the season. Your traditional oval racing, close, tight packs, and I think we'll start to see the driver count go up a little bit as well for some of these oval races the last few weeks. Just a lot of guys don't love the road courses and thus won't be able to make it. So with that, folks, we thank you all for as always showing up on a Wednesday night, supporting the series, doing everything you do to support our sponsors, support us, check out the merch, anything like that. We really appreciate all you do, and we hope we put on a great product, and we hope you've enjoyed, and hopefully you were able to hear everything there just a moment ago here in our little mini tech thing of the week here at the very end. So we thank you guys, as always, folks, for watching tonight's Big Red Propane 40 here at Charlotte Roval. Again, we want to finally thank our sponsors, Perfect Shine Auto Spa, if we can find them, as well as Apex Sim Racing. There we go, folks. Apex Sim Racing here, as well as Perfect Shine Auto Spa. And it has been an absolute pleasure. We'll be back in just a week's time here at Darlington in the 15th round overall, the second round of the playoffs. I can't wait to go. Have a great rest of your week, folks. To answer a previous question, yes, the wildfires, you can feel them up here in Canada. The air is smoggy. It's a lot going on up here in Toronto, Canada. Not super fun, but nothing worth canceling a race here over. So we thank you guys all for watching, for supporting the Bandit Racing League. For Christopher Ferreira, for myself, Marshall Crocker Jr., it has been an absolute pleasure, folks, and we will see you all in just a week's time for our race at Darlington, which will be the second round of Bandit Racing League playoffs for season number 11. We're just trying to get a graphic up here. There we go, folks. Have a great week. We'll see you in 7 nights' time.